what I thought would be really interesting is hear from local opinion leaders and stakeholders in response to last night's federal budget. So firstly, and I'll just run through the order here, Elaine Carbines, CEO of G21 Geelong Regional Alliance. I'd be shocked if people didn't know who you were, Elaine, but at the committee we're working very closely with G21, the Chamber, Tourism Greater Geelong and the Bellarine, the Manufacturing Council, City of Greater Geelong as a collective. And what's been wonderful during this period of time is that collaborative effort to share our voice to both state and federal governments. So I just want to welcome Elaine. Martin Cutter, CEO of the City of Greater Geelong. You are obviously in caretaker mode, and if normal times were had, we'd probably have the mayor, but I thought it'd be a great opportunity to hear from Martin, because from my point of view, federal budget funding is operational. You get streams of funding that comes from the federal government. So we're really interested to hear about your priorities as well. So welcome, Martin. Ben Flynn from the Chamber of Commerce, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. I think he started not long after I started. So I think it's not even been quite 18 months for Ben. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been great to get to know Ben and work with the Chamber, as I said, as well, during COVID, on our collective priorities for the region. And of course, Clive Pugh, who obviously you've just heard from, who's the new chair of the Committee for Geelong. He was elected at our AGM in November last year.
Thanks very much, Jen, and thank you to the committee for inviting me to be part of the panel today. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Clive, also for the warm welcome. And of course, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Wadawurrung people, whose land upon which we meet today. From G21's perspective, I think the Addy got it right this morning. There's some headline articles, headline items announced in the budget today that have been long lobbied for priorities for our region, and we shouldn't overlook those. It's close to $1 billion in commitments from the federal government, excuse me, this morning for transport infrastructure. I know we got a little bit of a leak about that, so we got the heads up about it, but let's not forget that that's been committed for our region. So $292 million for the Barwon Heads Road duplication, really essential project to improve the connectivity in our region. We know that, I think I saw Martin said in the press the other day, 17,000 people now living at Armstrong Creek. If you add the Surf Coast people and of course the Barwon Heads people onto that, massive traffic along the Barwon Heads Road. So we're really grateful to see that, and it complements the state government's commitment at the state election last time. Really pleased to see the bringing forward of the funding for the duplication of the railway line between Warm Ponds and South Geelong. That is such an important project, especially for those of us who live in the southern suburbs of Geelong, Armstrong Creek, Surf Coast. Currently, there's only a 40-minute service between Warm Ponds and South Geelong. And so this is going to really transform the connectivity of our region. So we're very grateful for the funding for that. We were disappointed last week to see that in making a $50 million announcement in relation to really supporting tourism, disadvantaged tourism areas across the nation, that the Great Ocean Road was overlooked. We couldn't believe that the Great Ocean Road did not receive any specific funding under that $50 million program. We were hoping that the budget last night was an opportunity to rectify that, but it wasn't. That was a missed opportunity. So we haven't seen the Great Ocean Road added to that funding announcement from last week. But we do know that there are two tourism funding streams that the Great Ocean Road will be, of course, eligible to apply for. One is a $250 million tourism fund, but of course it's a competitive process and there's no guarantees that our region will be successful when you've got the whole of the nation applying for what is a small amount of money, really. $250 million. And then, of course, there's a further round of the Building Better Regions Fund, which is another $200 million. Again, a nationally competitive fund application process. So we will we'll wait to see if we're the beneficiary, but they're potential funding streams for our region. Really disappointed not to see any money for Geelong Port. We know we've got this amazing opportunity coming our way with the Spirit of Tasmania from 2022. Huge project, largely funded through the port itself and through the Spirit of Tasmania company. And all that's being asked for is $15 million to improve the access and egress to the port. Vital that that work is done. And so, you know, why is that? Should that been looked at through the federal government? Well, the Spirit of Tasmania is part of the national highway. It's how the mainland connects with Tasmania and vice versa. So it's disappointing not to see any contribution towards that project. And of course, I know Martin's going to talk about the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub, but you know, goodness me, it's been years now that we've been looking for funding for that project. We need $20 million from the federal government and from the state, and to see it once again overlooked is really disappointing. What else is in the budget? There's lots of global funding for really interesting areas that potentially our region will be able to benefit from. The manufacturing fund, $1.5 billion worth of funding, and you know that has to be a great opportunity for our region, for the manufacturers in our region. I was really pleased to see the apprenticeship fund, again $1.5 billion to employ another 100,000 apprentices across the region, where the federal government will pay up to 50% of their salaries. We stand as a region to benefit from that. From Avalon's perspective, the announcement that I suppose most interested us was the extension of the programs to underwrite the domestic and regional flight rates. So that's going to be support for Qantas, Jetstar and Virgin, plus some regional airlines. So Avalon is well positioned to, I suppose, take that opportunity once our restrictions are lifted and borders reopen. So, and I know, as you know, Justin Giddings will be onto it really, really quickly, and hopefully we'll benefit. From a disadvantage perspective, G21 has signed up a couple of years ago to the VCOS campaign to raise the job seeker rate. At the moment, job seeker is, people are receiving about $800 a fortnight, but that's going to cut out at the end of December, and it's going to go back to the old New Start rate, which basically is about $560 a fortnight. And we don't think that's enough money for people to actually live on and to meet rising costs. So we're disappointed to hear that there's not going to be an extension or a permanent increase in that job seeker rate. We know that the job keeper is going to finish in March. We think there's a special case for Victoria to have the retention of job keeper beyond March. And then we were interested to hear about Job Maker, which was a new program announced in the budget, $4 billion, to assist employers to employ young people, 16 to 35-year-old people, for up to 20 hours a week. So surely our region will benefit from that. And that's, you know, an important initiative, because we know that there's pockets of very high youth unemployment in our region. So quick overview from me. Happy to take some questions later, Jen.
Thanks, Elaine. I might hand to Martin Cutter now, if that's okay. Martin, I'd love to hear, and I know Elaine's preempted probably some things that you will talk about, but it'd be really good also just to give the members an overview of just council priorities generally and how this budget might either affect or support those. You're on mute. There you go.
I gotta love that. Thanks, Jen. It's just how many times I've done that over the last 6 months. Look, I'd like to also acknowledge the Wadawurrung people as traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the greater Geelong community today. So thank you. Look, I will say in starting off, I'll be a touch circumspect today, which, and I hope really I won't disappoint everyone that's tuning in. We're obviously in a caretaker period. We've got councillors who are obviously are going to an election on October the 24th. So, and during this time as a CEO, I've really got to adhere to sort of strict election period protocols. So my comments today will be limited to operational impacts of the budget. I certainly won't be making too many critical comments. I note Elaine's comments there, and certainly I endorse a lot of those things. And what we're very pleased, I guess, about from the budget perspective is it is a spending budget and it is about jobs. The challenge for the federal government and all of us, I guess, is it being spent in the right spots? But there are some really, really positive things that have come through the budget that we're really excited about, and I think we're absolutely ringing endorsement of the approach the Feds are doing, which is I guess that spend in infrastructure that Elaine talked about, and the Barwon Heads Road upgrade, which is the extra $292 million, is absolutely critical for us, and we're really pleased to see that coming through. I mean, that's 4 kilometres of road between Settlement Road and Reserve Road, and building a bridge across the railway line at Marshall, removal of level crossing, upgrading intersections, etc., new street lighting, road signage, etc. It is something that we're all crying out for, and if anyone has ever driven down the road, and there are a lot of people, they'll understand why it's so needed. It's going to make a huge difference to our residents and visitors. So absolutely a huge tick for that. Also massive tick for the $605 million works for the stage 2 and 3 of the South Geelong to Warm Ponds rail upgrade, with now funding phased over the next 4 years, which is something we've all been pushing for. So we're really pleased to see that, and obviously the state government's got commitments through that project as well. That corridor upgrade, I think, is 12.6 kilometres between South Geelong and Warm Ponds, and as Elaine pointed out, those people in South Geelong and Warm Ponds and Marshall will absolutely reap huge benefits for that, and obviously even further down the track towards Warrnambool. I think there was an announcement about Warrnambool rail as well, which will make a big difference. So I think really, really pleased with that. We're also clearly, we've been hard hit by the pandemic, and our tourism industry really is one area that's really been hit hard. So we really welcome the announcement of the $250 million to the regional tourism recovery package, which will include $100 million for infrastructure projects that boost regional tourism, and we'll be looking for further details on what these opportunities might provide in our tourism industry. It's always difficult when the budget first gets announced. There are a lot of groupings of dollars, and you really have got to work through the detail and go through the process over the coming months to work out how you're going to best avail those sorts of opportunities. So we're really pleased about that. And some of the other things that have come through. We're a major provider of home care to our ageing population. So the extra $1.6 billion that will go toward a further 23,000 home care packages, we expect will help many of our population and to get the care that they really desperately need. Some other things that are relevant, I think, the $100 million that's allocated to the Regional Recovery Partnerships Program, including $30 million for the Regional Connectivity Program, was great. I note the funding also for the Building Better Regions Fund of $200 million. We've applied a number of times through that program, and we will be really looking to opportunities in that, really for our major priority project, which is the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub. Obviously, Elaine pointed out it wasn't specifically mentioned, but we're very keen to get going on that fund and looking at the opportunity that comes through that. With some opportunity and great work with the state and federal government, we believe we can get there. So we're really looking to work hard through that. And you'll all note that we have moved to calling that now the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub, and it was the Northern Art Project, and we felt the change of name will make a big difference to getting people to understand what that project's about. The other one I think I want to make special mention of is the allocation of $1 billion for local councils to upgrade local roads footpaths and street lighting, all on a use it and lose it basis, they've stated, I think. And that's really part of goes to our core services. So that's something that we absolutely endorse. And again, for us, it's about trying to get access to that and how we get access to that. So that will be devil in the detail, and we'll be working hard to make sure that Geelong gets its fair share of those allocation of funds. There are a few other things that I think are worth mentioning. The additional 10,000 places that have been created in the first home loan deposit scheme, which is great news for Geelong and its growing first home market, especially the growth areas like Armstrong Creek. And you'll all know that we've got our recent settlement strategy for the northern western growth areas as well, which should help, drive the demand in that. And it's really that demand which will drive a lot of the spend in the area. So we're giving that a huge tick as well. A couple of other things I think just worthwhile mentioning. There was a note about university support for international students. That's a small one. I think they have a 40-hour fortnight work limit waived if they work in supermarkets. So that's an important, or aged care or disability care. So at Geelong being a university city, I think that's one also that I think it's worth noting. So I'll give some support for that as well. With our population growth of 2.8%, we are the fastest growing regional centre in Australia. So the support for spending and packages and jobs is something that I think really ties into that. The council's been very supportive and created a fairly large COVID recovery budget support. We're very keen to continue to support the community going forward. As I said before, there's a lot of groupings of funding or large pots of allocation of funding. We're going to be working hard over the coming months to make sure that we as council and our community that we represent are going to get their fair share of what's on offer. So that would be the main comments I think I would make, Jen. In regards to council's priorities, I've obviously mentioned the Northern Arc. Is one that the transport spend is something that our council will be really pleased with, and their things. We want obviously work really closely with the state to look at our transport system, but these things that have been covered through this budget are something that have been a long time coming. So absolutely ringing endorsement of those. So that would be my overall comments.
Thanks, Martin. And I know we're going to jump to Ben next, but the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub, I was asked about that this morning on K-Rock. So I didn't say you were definitely going to put in an application to the Building Better Regions Fund, but I might have said that would be something that Council will probably look at. So I preempted that. So I'm glad to hear that might be something that you'll look at. Ben, if you don't mind, really interested to hear the feedback around the membership that you have, because I've spoken to quite a few government representatives and stakeholders about your membership base, particularly being ones that would be bearing the brunt of a lot of the pandemic impacts. So I'd love to hear your response. Thanks, Ben.
Good morning, Jen, and thank you. And thank you also to Clive. I know the Chamber of Commerce has been really pleased to be involved in the Geelong Collective. The One Voice Geelong seems to be working really, really well. So that gives us great confidence moving forward. I'd also like to pay our respects to the traditional owners, the Wathaurong people, to their leaders, past, present, and emerging as well. The budget was interesting last night. We're talking really mind-boggling figures, aren't we? Once we get into the trillions in terms of debt and so on, but I think there was no escaping it. We needed to invest in business and jobs, and certainly they delivered on that. And it's important to probably recognise that servicing that debt at the moment, given really low interest rates, is actually no more than servicing the debt we had after the GFC. So while they're mind-boggling figures, the actual repayments are less than what we've had in the last decade. So that's really interesting to note. Like Elaine mentioned, we were really pleased to see apprentices and trainee support covered. Young people's jobs, really, really important. We really like the tax cuts and the fact that consumer spending as a result of those tax cuts is due to go up by 7%. And obviously small business retailers, cafes, pubs and clubs will benefit from that. So really supportive of the tax cuts and continuing to support that over the next couple of years. as Martin mentioned, a university town, great support for higher education and TAFE. Really, really important for us, and continues to invest in those young people coming through, and investing in securing those jobs in our towns, given how large Deakin and the Gordon are, and all the other RTOs in our town. I really like the superannuation transparency. I think there's $30 billion in fees that come out of all of our funds over the year, and I think the more we can keep that in our pocket as individuals will obviously translate into consumer spending as well. And I think they've done a good job there. I was particularly pleased with the funding for recycling, clean energy and a ban on plastics. I think that's the way we're all trying to move, and anything the Chamber can do to help facilitate that would be really good as well. The increased NDIS mental health services and also aged care, that provides a safety net for all of us as a community, and really important funding in those spaces. For larger businesses, R&D incentives have been increased, which is great, which will mean they can spend more money on jobs and other things. I was really pleased with the Warrnambool line and the Warrnambool upgrade and Barwellheads Road, like everybody else, and they're really important projects. The first homeowner deposit scheme, meaning first homeowners can probably get into the market for about 5%. I'm a bit mixed on that one. I think that's a good thing. We probably would have liked to see the home builder grant extended beyond December. And I worry with the 5% benchmark that we might be staring at some subprime mortgages moving forward. And in the long run, I don't know if we're overly supportive of that, but we'd like more detail. Some investments in cybersecurity, which will be good if they help businesses overall. And I like the funding for manufacturing and upscaling some of those manufacturers. We have some great, smaller manufacturers in our region that need that support as well. So that'd be great. The job makers scheme is a bit, while I support focusing on getting our kids into work, I do worry a little bit that, those over 35 and older Australians might not benefit as much and be left hanging a little bit in that space. I also worry that it's not sufficient enough to cover the complete drop-off of the JobKeeper scheme in March. And we've advocated really strongly for the JobKeeper in those really hardest hit industries to continue in some way. And we'll continue to do that, even though it's not in the budget. I think there's still scope for that conversation. As is seeming to become normal, sole traders are tending to miss out on funding at the moment, and they're really hard hit. These are mums and dads and people that are leaving their office jobs and taking a punt and becoming entrepreneurs. And because they don't employ staff, they don't benefit that way. Because they don't make a lot of money, they probably don't benefit from the tax cuts as well. So as always, I'll be advocating and we'll be advocating for sole traders to get a bit more assistance, because they are the engine room to our innovation, and we want people to have the confidence to take that leap of faith and start their own businesses and follow their dreams, and that's really important. The regional tourism too, I was a bit miffed by that one as well. The $250 million, and I think they nominated 10 projects for that, and we don't seem to be part of that at the moment. But as Elaine said, I hope there is still scope to apply as part of the competitive process to be involved. The other big one for small businesses is probably being able to offset your losses against previous year's profits. So in 2018 or 19, if you had a viable business and you made a profit, and now you're making losses due to COVID, you can actually apply those losses against previous years and get a tax refund in June next year, instead of carrying forward those losses and using against future profits. So that's a good way of putting money into small businesses who are viable and continue operating. With the state budget coming up, we're advocating really hard, continuing on supporting businesses, programs to kickstart the economy, local procurement, especially, as well as mentoring and financial counselling and wellbeing support. I spoke to Christine Cousins this morning, and I'm pushing to, there's no reason why we can't start to open up sooner, and trying to make sure the regional areas are not wrapped up with Melbourne on October the 19th, and hopefully the budget will support regional businesses moving forward.
Thanks, Ben. I've already written down quite a few things that I'd like to talk about, but I can wait. I'll wait because obviously next we want to hear from Clive Pugh, who's the chair of the Committee for Geelong, but also CEO of Winchester, which has a long tradition here in Geelong, and I know Clive's experience in around, we've had this discussion, Clive, around research and development, innovation, manufacturing, and I think earlier this week, and I know Chad's on the line, but we were asked questions by the Addy around what we thought we wanted to see in the budget, and I'll say, Clive, you preempted one of the big initiatives of the government, which was really, what did I say, prescient. So if okay, I'll give you the floor, and I know you might want to bring up a couple of other things as well. So thanks, Clive.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks to everybody else. And I see we've got one of the former chairs of the Committee for Geelong, Michael Betts, joining us today as well. So nice to see you, Michael. Look, they say the devil's in the detail, don't they? And when you scratch beneath the surface of the budget announcements, it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that over the coming weeks and months. And I think that's critically important for us in terms of our advocacy. When I look at the COVID recovery list that we put together, that we shared with the government around the priorities that we saw for the Geelong region, right now as we sit here, there's probably more misses than there are hits. And particularly in the tourism area where others have already talked about that, where there hasn't been specific call out for support around some of the things we advocated for. And I think that we're going to look for ongoing dialogue with the federal government and then subsequently the state government to talk about where other funding avenues are open to us to try and support those projects. I think we are greatly encouraged that the focus of this budget is around growing the economy through the development of infrastructure. It's been a really big thing that we've advocated for, and as Elaine alluded earlier, there was a clear one there that would have been nice to have seen immediate announcement to talk about improving access and egress to the port. And again, we're still hopeful that something like that may actually get funded through some of the lower level mechanisms that are going to be made available. When you talk about infrastructure though, funnily enough, I saw a KPMG post this morning that echoed pretty much what I think about infrastructure, which is there's been a lot of rhetoric talking about shovel-ready projects, but unfortunately, when you come to talk infrastructure, it's such a long lead time and the big ticket items aren't currently shovel-ready. And probably the biggest disappointment for me, and again, this may come out subsequently, is the discussion around what does infrastructure planning look like? And if we could have some funds around talking about developing infrastructure plans that try and reduce red tape, to try and improve the approval process for industry to be involved in constructing projects sooner rather than later, is going to be a critical means of being able to achieve economic recovery as the Treasurer has outlined. It's hard for us not to make a comment about rail. We've seen funds specifically mentioned in the discussion of the budget for upgrade of rail lines for Warrnambool and Shepparton, but no mention of the Geelong to Melbourne rail line. And that's been a strong subject that we've been debating ever since I stepped into the role as chair. As many of you know, there's been a lot of commentary about whether the Committee for Geelong has been active enough in terms of its advocacy for a rail solution. And whilst that typically gets badged under the discussion about different fast rail options, our advocacy has always been about improving the rail link between Geelong and Melbourne to assist the commute travel for Geelong to Melbourne, but also to assist the transport of Melbourne people wanting to come to Geelong. And to not have that specifically called out at this stage is a disappointment, notwithstanding that the duplication of the South Geelong to Warren Ponds rail line, it's part of that project, but I kind of feel it's a subset part of the project, and it's come first, but the overall discussion about how that links into Melbourne has not been put forward. Now, we understand that there will be further announcements, and it's likely that that will come out subsequently as well, and is highly dependent on the position of the state government, which hopefully we'll see as that comes out through the state budget process over the next month or so. The disappointment there, I guess, continues to be this headbutting between state and federal government around projects. And, there's a little bit of an undertone of, there's not overt sort of partisan support just because you're a Liberal state. But there is a little bit of the language that we saw from the Treasurer last night that was already indicating a butting of heads with the Victorian state government around infrastructure projects. And that's a significant concern for us. We want infrastructure projects to not be Melbourne-centric. We want them to be regionally based. And I think that that's going to be a continued part of what we look for. There's some good stuff coming out of this budget in terms of support for business. If I put my business hat on, to see that accelerated write-off for purchase of assets is critically important for us. I think there's some detail around that in terms of whether that's going to be restrictive or not in terms of the dollar value of spend. But again, that's something that will help kickstart spending. Support for manufacturing is one of the key things we advocated for, and I know the GMC will be delighted to see the focus in the budget around the support for grants to manufacturing, and importantly to see training to support people in those areas as that develops. And I think that again is good for us. Look, on balance, you'd have to say the government is being bold in terms of its approach to trying to solve or put in place steps to solve the economic crisis that we currently face. And I think one of the most reassuring things that I saw this morning was the federal opposition coming out saying that largely they will support the measures that have been put on the table. And I think that if we see that approach being taken, that will be greatly encouraging for us going forward. So that's pretty much all I want to say, Jen. It's my focus has been on that infrastructure piece. I think there's lots of work still to be done there. I think we're in a good position, but I think that we'll be working hard to make sure we get listened to in relation to those things.
Thanks, Clive. Now, just a reminder, everyone, you can post. I've already had a few people privately ask me some questions, and I'll throw to Chad from the Addy in a moment, but please post, and/or if you want to put your hand up, wave your hands around, however you want to manage this. But what I might do is throw to Chad from the Addy first. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Jen. My question's to Martin Cutter on the Northern Arc. I know it's been renamed, but obviously, there's been, the region's been crying out for this project. Martin, what's your view on council actually going at this alone and spending, I guess, council funds on this project? Is that viable?
Thanks, Chad. Look, good question. I mean, the project's actually a big project, and it's a $60 million project. Council has committed $20 million to that program and has worked tirelessly with both the federal government and state government to advocate for the project. The council doesn't have the funds to build the facility at its complete stage, and that's why we've continued to advocate with both federal and state for a $20 million commitment from both those levels of government. So the answer to your question is no. And I am pleased that we are getting positive signs from both the state and federal government about it, and I really have appreciated the support of G21 and Committee for Geelong relentlessly over the time. We feel we're getting closer. I think people understand the need for the facility, and even changing the name to the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub is more definitive of what it actually delivers for its community. It's a growing community out there, so we're going to continue to push through to do that.
Yep. Just on the Building Better Regions Fund, I think the project has missed out in a previous round. What sort of confidence do you have that you as a council you've maybe improved your pitch to be able to better secure funds under this program?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, we really appreciate the federal government for again committing to the Building Better Regions Fund. We have applied previously, but again, I think we've refined our arguments. I think to a clearer perspective, and I think the advocacy from other bodies has made a big difference as well. In regards to being confident, I really can't comment, Chad. It will be what it'll be, but I know from our perspective we'll continue to work our way through that.
Yeah, can you explain the process that's sort of gone on, I guess, to date, to try and get governments to realise how much this project is needed for our region?
Well, we've worked with the federal government and state government to put our position forward, and they, I think, understand that. And what has been pleasing, again, as I've made the comment before, that both G21 and Committee for Geelong and other bodies have done some strong advocacy for it. We'll continue to work with the state and federal government about it. That means meeting your local MPs, meeting your local federal MPs, and making sure that they're clear of why it's an important project to council.
Yeah,
Chad.
Last one.
1-1. Okay.
Yeah. Does the state and federal governments have a business case that council have produced on this project yet?
I think, Chad, I think you're going further than where I want to go to at the moment. I think we've got a very respectful relationship with both the federal government and the state government, and we'll continue to work our way through that.
All right, no
And
worries.
then, thanks, Chad. There you go. Well done. Thank you, Martin. I've got a question that's popped up in the chat, but I might just jump in if that's okay. I've got a few coming through. So a question for the panel is about social housing, because I've seen some commentary about the federal government. There's a little bit in there that's mentioned. I think there was a lot of disappointment that the federal government didn't prioritise social housing as a way to stimulate the economy. And I know the city, you've got a strategy in place. I know, Elaine, you probably have some views around that. So I just thought I'd open it up and say, are we disappointed that the federal government didn't look at social housing in a more fulsome way in the budget?
Certainly, from G21's perspective, we saw social housing as a great opportunity to not only provide more housing across the nation for people that really need it and have little ability to access affordable housing. We also saw it as a great opportunity as a job creation scheme, a construction scheme, a great employer. So it is disappointing that there's really, as far as I can see, and of course you need a few weeks to wade through every line item in the budget. As far as I can see, there doesn't seem to be any incentives around social housing. You're right, the city has done an incredible social housing strategy. We're undertaking one for the whole of the region. It's a critical issue. So that was disappointing, because we saw it as an opportunity to address a critical issue, a complex social issue, but also create jobs as well.
Martin, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more, but I just think it's something that I'll be looking pretty strongly to the state government for some announcements around that and or ongoing support. We've had a question. Louise Johnson's doing has been doing work for us in terms of research, and she's got a question for Ben, but I might kind of open that up as well, because Louise is talking about how do we boost those manufacturing sectors that can be stimulated by the federal government, for example, food, defence and other sectors. So if I can be so bold as to rephrase that for the group, because I know Clive, we're part of the Geelong Defence Alliance. I know kind of collectively the group here is pretty involved with that discussion as well. And I suppose the question is, now there's these incentives and dare I say it, have they picked some winners in terms of manufacturing sectors to support? So first question would be, do you agree with the priorities that they've put forward? And I know David Peart's not here today from the Manufacturing Council, but maybe just a comment about the future of manufacturing in Geelong and how we can collectively support that.
So that's me, Jen. Ben. Hello, Louise. How are you? We haven't seen each other for a while, but I know Louise well, and thanks for the question. Given this is
hi,
straight out of the oven, I suppose we'd be looking to disseminate it and work with our manufacturing partners to communicate what exactly that means. Obviously, we're part of the Defence Alliance as well, but look, the Chamber's really supportive of the advanced manufacturing story, and obviously we've supported things like the Pellegrin taking over the Ford factory, which is probably ties in really well with this opportunity for smaller organisations to get some tenancy in a first-class solution. So for me at the Chamber, I suppose it'll be about understanding and then communicating with our members specifically on what those opportunities are at the moment over the coming weeks, certainly.
I don't know if I could put you on the spot, Clive. Thank you.
There we go. Look, I think the stimulus we've heard about is terrific. I find it a really interesting area of debate when you look at where economic policy has come from in relation to manufacturing, procurement, supply chain over the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, when you look at the removal of tariffs to have a level playing field for manufacturing, which led to a large part of the demise, and now we're looking to try and put in place sovereign capability, which is a really interesting discussion. And I can tell you that within defence, for example, I've been involved quite closely with some discussions about sovereign capability. And it's not that the intent of the government is wrong or that the intent of the agencies doing the procurement is wrong. It's quite right. But until government puts in place some better processes to ensure that government procurement does more than just pay lip service to local content, I think that's a really critical thing that has to happen. It's part of the simplification of around and removal of red tape. But you can't just allow on the rhetoric of companies saying that they will have local content without demonstrably showing that there is local content. That's certainly improved in the defence area. I'm not sure that it's extended to other areas of government procurement, and I think that we'd like to see that. I guess the other comment I'd make is just around support for large-scale investment. I think we had the Assistant Treasurer online the other week. He made some interesting comments in relation to Foreign Investment Review Board as not being a barrier to foreign investment. And I do think foreign investment's critical to have large-scale investment to have in Australia. You know, for example, why wouldn't we have an Australian steel industry reinstated to add value to iron ore that we dig out of the ground in Australia? You know, that's something that would bring large-scale manufacturing onshore, would employ a lot of people, and you know, the knock-on effects in terms of support industries for that would be immense. Now, the flip side to that is, well, what about the environmental side? Well, you definitely need to include the cost of environmental compliance as part of that. But I think it's a really interesting area that we haven't yet seen much discussion about.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to add to that. No? I always find this fun balancing act to comment to people privately, you know, contacting me on the chat. So what I thought I might do is, I had a couple of comments that I'd like to kind of have a discussion with the panel. One is this idea, and I did speak to media about this today, but we've got tax cuts that are coming. So I think everyone will be of benefit in terms of that, in terms of extra cash in our pocket, as well as then obviously the opportunity for businesses to invest in capital, etc. So I would like to have a view from the group. We've had the budget come down now. We've got a collective around things that we were lobbying for. We now move into state government budget time, but the buy local concept, I think, is something that I've been really interested in how we can support. I know council's put out some, I don't know what you call it, digital collateral to actually support it. So it's probably a question for maybe Ben, but also Martin and or Clive, which is, we need to really encourage Geelong people and Australia as a whole to buy local. What does that look like in terms of local procurement, and how do we give people confidence to do that? Because there's a lot of assumptions in the federal budget last night. You know, one's about the vaccine, one's about, you know, the fact that business needs to be confident to invest and employ, but they're riding on the prospect that people will spend money, that they're being put in their back pockets from these tax cuts. So I think it's just a view of what can we do as a collective group here today hey, I'll rope in the Addy, but what can we do to actually really instill that confidence in our community to spend locally?
Thanks. And I've certainly seen a few of the buy local stories coming through, whether it's online or through the council, and we really support that. I think the situation lends itself very well to a buy local story, doesn't it? We're not moving around much. We know that our friends and families and businesses are really hurting, and we don't want to see those small, whether it's retail industries or hospitality industries, disappear, because they're the cornerstone of our social life and what we do. So yeah, it is something we really support, and I think I think you're right in maybe we need to get together and talk about it a little bit further and develop some priorities as a group on how we can communicate that to all of our members and all of our followers, because it's it's so important and it will help businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I can make comment as well, Jen, if that's all right.
Yes.
You on mute then, were you?
I was just saying yes, but that's all right.
No worries. Look, yeah, I totally agree with what Ben's saying. Look, it's quite simple in the end. I mean, we've got a campaign running. It's called It's Our Backyard. And, we're encouraging people to spend and buy locally, of course. So I think we've got an ad going in the Addy or something tomorrow that sort of talks about using local architects, builders, tradies and suppliers to bring your dream home to reality. That's one angle. Buy directly from your local makers, artists, designers to make your house a home. So that's very much focusing on build. But it's like the old Australian made focus. You've actually got to make yourself concentrate on what you're spending, where you're spending it, and what product you're buying, and see whether you can make it buy local. And if it's not Geelong based, we'll make it Victorian based. So it's that real focus that you need to do when you're walking into the supermarket or you're working into your local retailers. How can you actually spend the money locally? The challenge, of course, with tax cuts is that often they go into savings, which is good in its own way. But what we really want to do is obviously have people spend the money, and we want them to get it to spend locally, which will make a huge difference to helping Geelong and the municipality thrive out of COVID and recover. So I can only encourage us all to do that, and I know that's one of the focus I will have, and I'm certain the people we're talking to today will actually say, yeah, you're right, it shouldn't be that hard. You just got to concentrate as you're making those sort of fundamental decisions.
And I think it's important to look at the timing as well. Those tax cuts, they won't be in your pocket until this time next year as well. So so there's a bit of a lag with that.
I think they're bringing the tax cuts forward and back paying them. So I was actually just talking to the staff today about this, because my understanding is I'm not sure when they're going to hit our payroll, but they will be coming in this financial year. So yeah, it's anyway, I'll let you have a look at that, but it's definitely something that's coming through pretty soon, and they'll backdate it to July 1 this year, which is very exciting. So I suppose I've got a few comments here about Tony McManus is talking about resurrecting the Smart Move campaign. I think that was that in the 90s when I was actually working at council? And then Elaine, you're saying an online platform localised, yes. So there's a few things, and I think the state government's got like a click. Yeah, I've forgotten what it's called, but there is a campaign. So I thought I'd flag that. Yes, Click for Vic, that's right. Look, I have another question. I hope I haven't missed anyone, so please speak up. But there was a comment about recycling and the circular economy. And what really interested me was the federal government's ban on exporting plastic, glass, etc., and that we need to own our own waste, I suppose, and really have a significant look at our circular economy and the opportunities. And I suppose it's a question as well as an opportunity, because and Martin, just for your information, I was speaking to some of your officers this week about the Victorian Waste Authority and the new Waste Act. So there's a paper out at the moment, and the submissions close this Friday. And I don't know if I've even really spoken to Clive about this in great detail, but we had a forum with our members on Monday. So we'll be putting in an application this Friday to that process. So my question is, circular economy, how we can position ourselves in this area as a local leader what can we do in terms of providing end market and or supporting what the federal government's saying, equally the process that the Victorian government's going through at the moment? And I know it's a road rates and rubbish type question for Martin, but I'm really interested to know, because we did have a very brief discussion, I recollect, around this being an area that Geelong really could own, and I know Deacon's doing significant work in this area too. So we've only got a couple of minutes. If there's any comments around that, I'm really interested to hear, because I want to put in some concepts or feedback back to the state government this week particularly.
I'll go first, Jen, if that's all right. But look, yeah, there is this discussions that are going on about the establishment of a waste authority. Yeah, I think we'd be supportive of consistent treatment across the wider area, and the more consistency we get, the more likely we are to get a more clearer direction of where we're going. Part of the challenge has always been is it's really left with individual councils to come up with individual solutions. So that then results in a disparate bunch of outcomes that are not clear for anybody. So the greater strength and leadership by the federal and state government in this area, the better off we'll be. Whether it actually will result in a significant enhanced outcome, obviously we're going to work really hard through the engagement process on this authority concept. But the idea of a fourth bin, etc., will also be something we're going to work towards in the coming years. So we'll be keen to be part of these conversations.
Yeah, Jen, we've probably got the person sitting on our committee who would have a lot to say about this, Matt Dickens, but I'm going to have to try and have a crack from a policy point of view. Look, it's an interesting that federal government comes out in a budget statement and makes a policy statement that has significant implications and presents fantastic opportunity. But there's a thing called cost, volume, profit, you know, that there has to be an economic model of dealing with waste that is sustainable. And that requires, you know, industry associated with the outputs of the waste to be established. And again, if we can link that back to infrastructure, if we can link that back to incentive for industry, if we can link that back to R&D, which are all things that have been announced in this budget, then it's not too hard to draw the links together to get a solution that is viable. Solving the value model is one of the real keys to that. I'm sure council don't be the ones that are going to have to suffer the burden because of implementing changes to address that. But we definitely want to see investment. For example, waste to energy is an obvious example. People always focus on recycling plastic into recycled, you know, products, which is okay, but it doesn't solve the whole waste stream. And I think that that's what we're looking for here is, you know, what's the overall solution to this and who's going to be the lead on that? It's you know, you kind of get back to that city deal model that brought state, federal and local government together. Maybe this is a environmental deal that brings those three levels of government together to solve what is a massive issue.
Well, thanks, Clive. You said the word city deal. We have 1 minute. I was just going to throw back to you to wrap up if that's all right, but I might just say something quickly, which is there's a city deal implementation advisory meeting on Friday. I wait with great interest because I don't think we've seen an agenda yet. So I have followed that up with the relevant department, but I think it's really important that we focus on how we implement and start talking to our community in a much greater detailed way about the city deal is probably all I'd say. So if that's okay, Clive, are you okay to just wrap things up? I think we're almost at time. So thank you, everyone.
Not easy to do a wrap up. Thanks, Jen. The federal budget is something that touches every single one of us in both our personal lives, our business lives, our community lives. And, you know, I completely agree with you. I've been an advocate for a long time of using the framework of City Deal more often, more frequently on different projects as a model to follow, provided we can overcome some of the issues around the bureaucracy that prevents speed of implementation. And that's always the challenge when you're dealing with different layers of government. I think the federal government's been incredibly bold to put the solutions forward that we saw come out last night. The extent to which that supports us directly here in the region is something that we're going to have to take on board as part of our advocacy over the coming weeks and months. I do look forward to hearing the state government in terms of their economic budget response. I think is in early November, and for us to then draw the links between that and what's been announced in the federal budget is going to be pretty important. And then I guess once the council elections are complete and we have a new council in place, there'll be the third tier of government for us to interact with and meet with to talk about other priorities. There's a lot going on in this space. Jen, you're going to be pretty busy, I think. The rest of us are going to be pretty busy as well, and I think it's a terrific challenge to have. And I think it's presenting positivity. I think it's providing incentive, and I think that it's all the things we talked about in terms of recovery. Just getting more of those things on our collective list to turn from red to green. I think that has to be what we focus on, and I'm sure it will be. So appreciate everybody being on board today. Really great to have the opportunity to have this interaction, and happy to continue it offline for those that wish to through whatever mechanism there is. Thanks, Jen.